Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about utilitarianism and some of the problems with it. Utilitarianism basically just being the greatest good for the greatest number of people. On the surface of it, it's a collectivistic standard. The standard is not the individual. The standard is what is the best for the group, what gets the most value for the group. And also utilitarianism alone, this is another problem with it. Is that it sort of doesn't define what good is. It doesn't tell you what is the best for these people, what is the most good for the greatest number of people. What does it mean for something to be good? So then it sort of goes to these, it goes to whatever subjective, arbitrary standard they throw out. Like with, most people I think who are utilitarians hold a sort of materialistic standard, where it's just the greatest amount of wealth for the greatest number of people, or anything like that. Any sort of whatever standard people throw out, it's usually just some arbitrary standard that they come up with that looks good on the face of it. So they're like, okay, greatest good for the greatest number of people. Let's go with that. I mean, that sounds perfectly fine, doesn't it? No, it doesn't sound perfectly fine, because what the greatest good is, what is good, is not determined collectively. You don't look at a group of people and say, what is in the greatest good of all of these people together. No, the good is defined by the individual, because saying that something is good or saying that something is of value, you're saying it's good for somebody, or a value to somebody, and this can only be determined by an individual. Only an individual can set his own standards. Only an individual can set his own values, because he is the only one that experiences his life, experiences his happiness, and uses his mind to pursue his own life. A individual's life is only experienced by that individual. He's the only one that can determine what his values are. He's the only one that can set his own standards. Nobody else sets the standards for him. Now, what utilitarianism does, or what a utilitarian mindset does, is it tries to maximize the happiness for the greatest number of people, right? But the problem is it looks at it through a collectivistic lens. It doesn't say, like objectivists say, no, each individual needs to maximize his own happiness, reach for his own potential. It says it has these sort of general broad values that they lay over everybody, these general collective values that they lay over everybody, and basically say that we as a society need to engineer society and mess with certain people's desires, mess with what certain people want to bring up other people. Now what this does is it limits some people from reaching their maximum potential. And then for other people, it forces values on them. It gives them values that they didn't come to consciously. It just places all these values on them, gives them the unearned, basically. So just think about it in terms of welfare, for example. Certain people, the wealthy people, get to the top, and they get their money taken from them and given to the poor people. While the wealthy people, their potential is being capped. Their potential is being leveled off, and they're getting money stolen from them. They're not reaching the maximum potential that they can achieve during their life, and that is bad. Now, these poor people, on the other hand, they're receiving the unearned. They're receiving values that they did not earn, and values that are sort of being forced upon them as well, because a lot of welfare programs are just like, oh, you have to buy this certain food, like food stamps. You can only buy these certain foods. You don't get to choose necessarily what you do with it. So there's these certain values being forced upon them that they didn't come to consciously, and also they're gaining something that they didn't earn. If you achieve success based on unearned values, you can't take pride in that success. You can't feel spiritually successful. You don't feel like you deserve it. You don't feel like you deserve to live, and that's extremely important, because the primary goal of your life should be living. Like, the primary standard of your values is your life. And if you don't feel like you deserve life, if you don't feel like you deserve happiness or anything that comes with life, you don't feel like you deserve your values, and you will not feel happy when you achieve your values. So these are some of the biggest problems with utilitarianism, because it sets this collective standard. Basically, it sets this collectivistic standard for what good is, when the only standard is the individual's life. The only standard that is rational to think about in this context is the life of an individual. And one example of trying to be utilitarian, trying to maximize good, however they define it, it's never really defined. It's just sort of what people feel is the best. It's a very whimsical definition of good. But they just take from certain people and try to equalize it, basically, by giving certain people certain people unearned and unthought about values, forcing values upon them almost, and for other people taking away their potential, capping off their potential. I want to live in a world where people are allowed to maximize their potential, not where people's potentials are like equalized, or not where people are given like an equal potential, equal opportunity. I'm not a big fan of that sort of thing, because what it does is give some people the unearned and cap off another person's potential. Each person should be able to achieve the maximum of their potential. There should be no infringement on that. And the only way that you can sort of equalize opportunity for these poorest people is to give them the unearned, or to cap off another person's potential. And that is always a bad thing. I want people to maximize their happiness, maximize their life. An individual needs to think for himself and live for himself if he wants to ever achieve happiness or live. This is a basic fact of human nature. But yeah, I think that is all I have to say for today. So thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Peace.